Welcome back to Actually Adultish. My name is Christina. I am your host. I am a holistic health coach living in Los Angeles. I'm creator of the blog Addicted to Lovely, the host of Straight Up Paleo podcast, in addition to this fabulous podcast, and your new best friend, because I hope you feel like we're best friends after you listen to this podcast. That's my goal. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who is subscribed and showing your support. It means a lot to me. I love that we have such a cool community, and I love interacting with all of you in our Facebook group, Actually Adultish Podcast Nation, which you should totally join if you haven't already. It's super fun. And a lot of people ask how they can support the show, and there are a few different ways you can. First, you can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/actuallyadultish, and you can pledge any amount of money that you want to the show. It helps support the production costs. It can be $1 a month. It can be $2. It can be $5, $10, whatever you want. Every little bit helps and helps me keep the show running so I can put out a free show for you every week. And you can also support the show just by doing your regular old Amazon shopping through the Amazon link in the show notes and on the website. Basically, the way that works is you just do your regular Amazon shopping. It doesn't charge you any extra, but part of that money that you spend will go towards this show and supporting it. So that's another easy way, because we all do our Amazon shopping. We all know about that. So I'm super excited because this week's guest is truly incredible, and I have been trying to get her on the podcast for a long time, but she's a very busy woman. And I finally got her on, and we had the best conversation. So this week's guest is Courtney Swan, who is the creator of Realfoodology.com. If you are into food Instagrams on Instagram, I'm sure you've seen her. If you don't already follow her, her handle's Realfoodology. She also has a YouTube channel, and she's all about educating people about the food industry and teaching people how they can eat healthy, find real food. She's just an amazing food activist, and she's also an integrative nutritionist. She received her Master's of Science in Nutrition and Integrative Health from Maryland University of Integrative Health. And she's also the nutritionist and personal assistant to Tove Lo. So she's been on tour with Tove for quite some time now, traveling the world, getting some healthy eats. Insane. She's such a cool human, and we had such an amazing conversation. And like I said, I've been asking her for a while if she could come on, and she's wanted to, but she has an insane schedule because she's all over the world and on different time zones. And yeah, I was just really, really happy that she took some time out of her day when she was in LA just for a short minute to talk to me, because I totally get how you travel the world and then you're back home for like a week and you probably just want to hole up and not talk to anybody. But she so graciously gave me some of her time. So I tried to capitalize on it and got a ton of great information from her. This conversation really fired me up and just reminded me why I personally am so passionate about this and food and health and nutrition and just spreading awareness. And I just think that everything that Courtney is doing is really incredible and really important. And this is a big issue in our nation. American food is messed up. So Courtney has a lot of great info. So it's a long interview, but every minute is great. And I really hope you guys like it. But before we get into it, I just want to remind you about my friend Amy's course, Digital Nomad Nutritionist, which again is very relevant to today's guest. So if you're a health coach or an NTP, a nutritionist, you just love wellness and you want to turn that passion into a business, you want to work online, you want to work from anywhere, the same way Courtney travels the world. And there are a lot of other nutritionists and health coaches who like to travel around and do the work from everywhere, and it gives them so much more flexibility. And it's just amazing to be able to have your own business and do what you love from anywhere. And so if that's something you're interested in, I really recommend you check out Amy's course, Digital Nomad Nutritionist. And in that course, she basically teaches you exactly everything you need to know in order to build up your online nutrition business and turn your side hustle into your full-time thing if it's just a side thing you're doing right now. And it's totally self-paced, 100% online. You will learn every single thing you need to know. She'll teach you how to set up a website, get an email list growing, figure out a blogging strategy, how to find your audience, and grow your social media, build a personal brand without a really expensive designer or any designer for that matter, and more. So she really graciously offered $100 off the course for all actually Adultish listeners. And if you're interested in checking it out, then go to the link that's in the show notes and you can get your $100 off that way. Or you can go to bit.ly/digitalnomadcr with a capital CR, and it's the same link. So again, bit.ly/digitalnomadcr with a capital CR, or just click the link in the show notes and it'll take you right to the course and you can learn more about it. And I cannot recommend it enough. It taught me so much, and I have a lot of friends who have used it and everybody loves it. And Amy's a genius. She knows what she's talking about when it comes to growing an online business. And yeah, I think you guys will love it. So let's hop into the interview with Courtney, and I hope you guys like it. Hello, Courtney.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
It's so weird being in somebody else's space. Like usually when I'm podcasting, I'm in my own apartment. Right now we're in Courtney's place, and you have the perfect Bachelor in Paradise setup. I'm like imagining. Do you watch VIP?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, good.
For
Because you
sure.
have like a prime couch situation. I'm really impressed.
We have a lot of space, but actually I usually end up doing it at my friend's house, watching Bachelor in Paradise at my friend's house, but I might be doing it this Sunday actually because she's out of town. So.
Oh, so you're the host? Well, yeah, you have a setup. So, yes. Courtney Swan, for those of my listeners who don't know you, why don't you give a little intro about who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Courtney. I am the creator behind Realfoodology, and I also travel with Tove Lo as her nutritionist and personal assistant.
When you say that to people, like, what's the first thing they ask?
It's a mixture of who is Tove Lo, or oh my God, how did you get that job?
Yeah.
And what does your day-to-day look like?
So how did you get that job?
Yeah, so there's kind of a long backstory to it, so I will try to condense it as much as I possibly can. But basically, the short story is her tour manager, who got the job separately, he started working with her before I did, is a really good friend of mine that I've known for 12 years now. And we knew each other through touring. So I have a background of being a tour manager for various bands. And I met him back in the day when I was just simply working as a tour manager. And when he started working with Tove, he just sent me an email one day and said, hey, I'm starting to work with this artist Tove Lo. Maybe you've heard of her. At the time, I was like, oh my God,
yeah,
I
maybe.
love her.
Maybe. I might have heard one or two songs.
Like, have I ever?
Yeah.
And he was like, we're looking for a girl that has experience with touring, but also can help us stay healthy on the road and kind of act as like a third hand with whatever else needs, to be done. So
I think that's so cool I don't know much about touring, obviously. Is that like a normal thing to have a nutrition, like a health person along with you?
No.
Okay, that's why I'm like, that is so cool and everybody needs that. So that was amazing. And when he asked you that, what was your first reaction? Were you like, hell yes, I'm doing this? Or were you kind of like, I don't know?
I have to be fully transparent. When I first got that email, it was a mixture of, holy shit, this is really, really amazing. And I'm super excited about it. But also, do I want to go on tour again?
Yeah.
Because I originally left the touring lifestyle because it's so hard to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten really, really into health and wellness. And I knew that I wanted to make a career out of it. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely a mixture of, oh God, what am I getting myself into? But like, I feel like I have to do this.
Yeah. And so, how long was the tour going to be?
The initial one that they brought me on for was a month and a half.
Okay. But long term, I mean, how long have you been doing this now?
So I've been with her just about 2 years now. We're basically on the 2-year mark this month.
Oh my gosh. And then when does it end?
I mean, it's indefinitely.
It's indefinite. That's crazy. How does that feel, like having an indefinite, you know what I mean? Just like always traveling.
It's a mixture of excitement and fun. And also I've gotten to a point where I'm so exhausted that part of me is like, oh, I want to stay home for a little bit. But it's such a catch-22 because I really love it. I love it. So, but I'm very fortunate in the fact that I love where I live too. I love living in LA and I love when I come home. So whenever I do come home and it's time for me to leave again, I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave my friends. I don't want to leave, being able to just grab clothes out of a closet. Cause when I travel, I completely live out of a suitcase, which is pain in itself.
God. But it really makes you appreciate being here more.
It does.
Like when you're home.
It really does. And in the second that I get back on the road and the people that I travel with are like my family. So the second we're all back together, it's like, oh, everything makes sense again. And it's great.
Yeah. So when you got that email, like what were you doing?
So at the time I was living in Nashville actually, and I was tour managing a band, Third Eye Blind, as I was tour managing them.
Okay. Okay. You might know that.
You might have heard of them. But at the time that I was tour managing them, they weren't doing any full-time tours. So basically my life was living in Nashville during the week, and then I would leave on weekends and we would do these one-off shows. So I would fly out for the weekend, work a show, and then come back. So it was amazing for me at the time because it gave me so much time to focus on Realfoodology, my blog. So that's really when I was starting to hustle my side, my Realfoodology, my Instagram, my blog and all that. And then I would fly out on weekends with them. And then it was the timing, it's so funny how life kind of like just lines up for you in the perfect timing. When I got that email for Tove, I was originally going to do a tour with Third Eye Blind. And then, to be perfectly honest, I was dreading it because I didn't want to leave what I was doing with Realfoodology. And I knew that the second that I went out on the road as a tour manager, that anything that I was doing with my blog was just going to completely go to the wayside. Like as a tour manager, you're basically on call 24/7.
Yeah.
And I was very concerned about what was going to happen with that, because that really is where my passion lies, is, health and wellness and spreading the word, the various things that I talk about on my blog, I just feel are so important for people to hear. And when I got that email about Tove, I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Because they want me to focus on food and health and wellness so I could do both essentially at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So many things to take out of this. Okay. So let's talk about Realfoodology for a second, just like backtrack for people who maybe, if people haven't been to your blog, can you talk about how you got started with that?
Yeah. So as with, I feel like most blogs, it started as a hobby for me. I started it in 2011, which at the time people weren't really doing blogs. I mean, they were, and there were definitely blogs, but it was not as saturated as it is now.
Yeah. It was so different.
Yeah. It was so different back then. And at the time, it kind of started from this like just burning passion to really share what I had to say and share my opinion about the food industry. It was right around the time that I was starting to really learn about what was going on in our country as far as food goes, and just how much control our food industry had in general. And I just felt like I needed somewhere to put that out there.
Yeah.
So at the time, it was a hobby, and I was trying to kind of push it a little bit, but I didn't really know what to do. And I was also at the time a full-time student, so I didn't have a ton of time, and I was also working on top of that. Although now that I think about it, it's exactly what I've been doing for the last like 2 years, but it was just, I was in a different headspace at the time. And so it was kind of a hobby for a few years. And then once my Instagram started getting more traction is when I started realizing, okay, this is more than just a hobby. I feel like I could actually make something out of this.
Yeah. So, but did you grow up eating healthy?
I did, but I was very resistant to it. My mom loves to tell this story.
Okay.
So
should get your mom on here.
I know, my mom, and she loves to remind me of this too. It's so funny. She still to this day reminds me of this. But when I was growing up, exactly, I'm like, Mom, stop it.
Yeah.
So she's always been very health conscious, and I was always that kid growing up that had the weird off-brand organic cereals that nobody's ever heard of that we would get at this was before even Whole Foods was a thing.
Yeah.
Like there was, I think maybe one Whole Foods, and we would every once in a while take a trip there, because I grew up in San Antonio, which is an hour outside of Austin, which is where Whole Foods started. But at the time we didn't even have Whole Foods. We would go to this like weird, I remember complaining all the time that it like smelled really bad. It was like this weird like hippie organic market.
She was ahead of the time.
She was really ahead of the time.
You lucky girl.
It was Yeah. I mean, I look back on it and I honestly, I'm just so thankful for it, because even though at the time I was resistant of it, and this is going back to the story that my mom loves to tell, I had a best friend growing up who would eat Burger King, McDonald's, you name it, every fast food every night for dinner, like literally every night. So she had the whole collection of McDonald's Beanie Babies. She had all the, all the toys.
God, throwback to those Happy Meals.
It's so bad, but also
such
so
a good marketing tactic.
Right? Oh, it's so
shit.
messed up, but I mean, kudos to them. It worked.
I know.
God, but I mean, and so I mean, she tells me all the time that I would have full blown fits about it, like just, I want McDonald's, like my friend gets it every night for dinner, this and that, nah. And then now, I'm at a point obviously in my life where it's such a huge thing for me, and just reading all the research now and how important it is to start eating really well in those like really vital, important growing years. And not to say that you can't fix or repair that, but just knowing what I know now, I just constantly am like, thank you, Mom, for not letting me eat McDonald's, or, and that's not to say I never had it, but it was just, it was so rare.
Yeah.
In my house.
So what started getting you interested in learning about what was going on with the food industry, and like getting passionate about learning about that?
Yeah. So
like what made that switch?
Okay. So it started in college for me. As with everyone else, I gained the freshman, I would say like 20. It was bad. And at the time, I was just kind of recklessly, eating and drinking however I wanted. And as time went on, I just started kind of connecting the dots. And my mom, again, my mom is really like,
she's awesome.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And she really fueled a lot of that for me, because she, despite the fact that it would make me so mad and annoyed, what she used to do when I was in college, and this is before, so we had email, but it was not to the extent now that we use it.
Yeah.
I remember back then, like barely using email to like email my professors or something. And my mom would cut out news articles about health and wellness and put them in an envelope and mail them to my apartment.
Oh my God.
And she was living in Texas at the time.
Fabulous.
And I was in Colorado. Yeah. And,
wow.
And at the time, I'd always be like, oh God.
Yeah.
But I would read them, and it just slowly started I just made a shift. I started making baby steps. I mean, I will never forget, my mom sent me an article about hydrogenated oils, which is a huge thing now. And this is how far ahead of the game my mom was. This had to have been 2006. No, 2004. She sent me an article about hydrogenated oils and was like, please stop eating these. Here's an article about why they're so bad for you. So I was that weirdo friend, like 2005, telling all my friends, like, you guys have to stop eating hydrogenated oils. And everybody's like, what is that?
Oh my God. Do you remember where that article was from? Like what media was putting that out there? I can't even believe that.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Like,
it's crazy.
She must have been in some obscure journal. Like I can't even.
I know.
But isn't it funny looking back, and it's like when everybody told you were the weird person and like you were lying basically, and you look like, I think about when I first started getting healthy, like just a few years ago, and I would try and tell my parents, you shouldn't be eating that. And it's like, this is stuff that's not like obscure now, but even back then it was like, what do you you're so weird, that's so strange, why do you like, I'm like, what are you talking, like, oh, it's so
like
frustrating.
This is real food. Like what you guys are eating, I would deem as really weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Like not okay.
And then you look back and you just keep thinking, you're like, fine, I won't argue with you now, but in 5 years you're gonna look back and be like, I should have listened to her 5 years ago, because
and I love that you brought that up. This is so interesting to me, but I had friends who were so resistant of it back then, and then throughout the years, some of the people who I never thought would come around, they reach out, they'll send me an email, they'll send me a Facebook or whatever it is, and here's the thing, I hope that I don't sound like I'm being snarky, because I love it. I'm like, anyone that wants to talk to me about it, I will talk to you about it till your ears fall off. Like, I want everybody to know. But it is really interesting, because I got made fun of so much for it back then and gave so much crap about it. And now it's like the biggest thing, which is so funny.
And I think it's funny for me, it was like some of the people who were the hardest on me and were really going after me now are the ones who are like really trying to be my number one supporter and really trying to get information out of me. And I'm like,
Like,
you made yeah. Like, you were just silent back then. You were like a little mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's funny. Okay. So then I'm trying to get your whole timeline. Okay. So then how did you start getting into like tour managing?
Okay. So, it's funny. A lot of my life and my jobs that I've had have really been due to like friendships that I've made, honestly. So when I was in college, while I was as I was slowly starting to get into health and wellness, I still had more of a passion to pursue music at that time. So I started immersing myself in just anything that I possibly could related to that industry. So I got an internship at a record label that I loved, and I moved to LA on a summer break in between I think it was like my junior and senior year of college. And as I started doing this, I started making connections with people in the music industry. And then on a side note of this, I had some really good friends, these two guys, Sean and Nat, who are actually still some of my best friends to this day. And they had started this band, and they slowly started getting like a ton of national attention. It was so funny because they literally just started out performing in basements, and the next thing we knew, they were on MTV and all this stuff. And they just happened to be some of my really close friends. And at the time, they knew, one, how much I wanted to work in music and just how much I'd been immersing myself in it. So they kind of saw me as an asset because I had been doing so much of my just throwing myself in that industry kind of. And so they asked me to go on tour with them. And it's so funny because at the time, I literally had no idea what I was doing. And in their defense, they didn't either.
Yeah.
So none of us had ever gone on tour before. And we were all just like, well, here we go. Let's do this. And thankfully, because I had made all those friendships, I had a ton of friends that were already working as tour managers. So I immediately sent out emails to everyone I knew, sent, phone calls and everything. And I was just like, help, what do I do? Send me all your spreadsheets. Yeah. What do I do? And then from there, I just kind of learned how to do it by being thrown into it. So
that's so cool. So then, okay, have you been like tour managing like basically forever since then?
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. So I did that. I worked with 303 for 2 years, and then I was with this other band, the Somerset, for about 2.5 years. And then I briefly had worked for this other singer. So it was kind of like, once you start working in that industry, you'll kind of bounce around with different bands depending on that band's touring cycle. So like if somebody's in the studio, they're not on the road, then maybe you'll go out with another band or something. So I did that for, I think it was about 5 years, I guess. And then once I started really getting into health and wellness, I finally hit a point where I was like, okay, this is not conducive with my lifestyle anymore. I really want to be healthier, live a healthier lifestyle, and I want to learn how to help other people as well. So I quit the road and I went back to school, and God, it was like, I'm so glad that I did it, but those 2 years were so rough.
I don't know how you did that.
Because
what were you studying to become for people?
So I initially started out on the RD path, which is a registered dietitian, if people don't know what that is. And that's kind of the standard, if you want to be a nutritionist, that's pretty much like the standard conventional route that you go. And as of right now, at this moment in time, it is the best credential, I guess I would say, for nutrition, but that's definitely changing. And I will explain why if you want me to. But because I had an undergrad in communication, I didn't have any of the science background to even apply for the master's program for nutrition. So I went back, I did all of the prerequisites, which was just 2 years of chemistry hell. It was Chem 1, Chem 2, Biochem, Organic Chem, Anatomy and Physiology, and it was all one after the other. It wasn't like, normally when people do that, they do it across 4 years and they, pad it with other classes. Yeah. I was just like fully in it, and I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But obviously I'm really glad that I did it. And then after I got through that,
did you do that full time? Were you working while you were doing that?
I was, yeah. And that's actually right at the time I started Realfoodology. That was all during this time.
Okay, literally?
So I was killing myself.
Like literally, did you do it at night? Like what? Like I don't even get how you time managed that.
I will never forget this for the rest of my life. And I feel like this may not even be significant to anyone else listening, but it's so significant to me in my life because at this moment I had no idea what I was doing. But looking back on it, I will never forget. There was one night I was up really, really late. I had worked I'd gone to school all morning. I had worked until like 10 at night, and I came home, and I'd been wanting to start this blog forever. I had kept telling my boyfriend I was going to start this blog, and I still hadn't. I finally just hit a point where I was like, I'm pulling the trigger tonight. And I stayed on my computer till probably like 4 a.m. And this is the night I came up with Realfoodology. Like I was just, for weeks, I had been racking my brain. What am I going to name it? How am I going to start this? And I remember like, that was the night I finally like made my blog. I put it up. I spent hours like crying over it. Like, like, how do I do this? What am I doing? And at the time I was like, why am I doing this? It's like 5 a.m. and I have school the next day, and like, this is so not worth it. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then now, I fast forward and I'm like, I had no idea that it was going to turn into this.
No, thank God you did it. That's crazy though. Cause it's like you were doing so much and then you decide to add one more thing to your plate. Like, but when you're passionate about it, like you just do it, right?
Well,
like,
exactly.
Exactly.
It was just, I felt at that point, I was like, I have to do this. Like, there's just no other way.
And so, well, it's funny because actually just the last episode I recorded, I was talking to, one of the main topics we covered were what are the differences between an RD and an NTP, which is what my friend is and what I'm starting to become.
Oh, that's awesome.
But if you want to talk maybe about like why you went away from the RD route, I'm interested for your opinion.
Okay, yeah. So like I said, initially I wanted to be an RD, and as I was doing all these prerequisites, I was doing it through a major university. I was at Texas State, and essentially I had to complete all of these prerequisites in order to be considered for the master's program in the first place. And as I was going through these classes, I was also thrown into some nutrition classes because these were some of the prereqs, and I just, I started to realize that
I just
like, how do I word this? Like,
take it
totally without just being like,
yeah. No, honestly, just say it. Like I'm no BS.
Yeah. Well, we were being taught all these really old school nutritional beliefs that have since been disproved scientifically.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in these nutrition classes, they were still teaching us to promote low-fat diets.
Yeah.
And I was sitting through these classes, pulling my hair out, surrounded by all of these girls, and guys too, who... It made me really upset because a lot of them were totally clueless. They would come to classes with their Lunchables and Nutri-Grain bars, and I would be there with my like quinoa salad, and everyone would crowd around me and be like, what the F are you eating right now?
Especially in that kind of space, it's like there's almost this attitude. I don't know how to explain it. Like a superior, like I know more about nutrition than you, or like, do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like,
I've definitely felt that. I felt very, very isolated, and I have to admit, that was some of the reason that made me want to go a different route, because I just suddenly, because I had been so excited, I was like, yes, I'm going to be studying around these people, my people were also passionate about this. And then, come to turn, and I want to preface this by saying this was just my experience. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of RD programs, where you'll have a totally different experience. But for me, I hit a point where at one instance, I've started to question why I was even doing nutrition anymore. Like it literally burned out my fire. So
that's how you know you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's burning out your passion.
Because it was just everything that I was learning about. I would go home and then do the research and look up these, updated research about, for example, like the power of a high fat diet. And I couldn't sit through it anymore. So what I ended up doing was I pulled out of that program. Well, I finished all my prerequisites because I knew no matter what that I was going to need the prereqs to apply for any sort of master's program that I wanted to do. So I finished that out. I opted to not do the RD because it was not in line with my beliefs. And I also want to say this too. I'm not trash talking the RD certification at all. Like I hope anyone that's listening that is an RD, that is not my intention at all. This is just 100% the way that I experienced it, and it wasn't the right path for me. Yeah. But I think that it's a great path for a lot of people. And if you do get the RD credentials, you can do whatever you want afterwards. Yeah. So like if you do decide to do it, I think it's a great thing to do, but it just, like I said, it wasn't for me. And so what ended up happening was I took a year off, and I didn't like set out to be like, okay, I'm taking a year off. I just kind of was like, okay, so I'm going to take this time off. I'm going to figure this out. And, and my dad at the time my dad's very business minded and very like, no, you have to do it the traditional route. I mean, how I'm even like my dad's kid is mind blowing, because never go along like the set route. I'm always on my own, like off beaten path.
Literally,
which drives him nuts. But he also has recently been like, okay, kudos. Like you found a way. But so at the time he was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like just finish the program, then you do whatever you want. And I was like, no, I just can't. It's not in line with me. And, I have to say, I'm really glad that my dad did push me in that aspect, because initially I was thinking, oh, it's fine. I'm just going to do this health coaching certificate or whatever. And again, not trashing that. If it works for you, it works for you. But I just knew that I wanted something that was very, very grounded in science. Like I just wanted a really in-depth education, but I wanted it to have a holistic and integrative approach. So essentially what I was looking for is the holistic integrative RD equivalent. And thankfully, every time I would find these schools, and I'd bring him to my dad, and he would just be like, no, like this looks like garbage. And I have to admit that is kind of my issue with the nutrition education in general right now, because it really is, you go the RD route, or like you end up just getting some certification that you study a couple weeks online and you get to print offline, and
that's why it's so hard, because it's like within all of those different types of certifications, in every type of certification, there are people who don't know what they're talking about at all. And then people who do know a lot about what they're saying, but don't have a high enough certification to be like credited with how much they know. Like, I mean, I was just talking about this. I talk about this all the time. Like, some of the people I admire most in the health and wellness space have no certification. Like some the smartest, people that we like read and look up
like
to.
Dave Asprey.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
smartest man I know in wellness right
exactly.
now.
And what certification do these people? They don't have any, but I don't care, because I read everything they've I know, but other people don't know that, so they'd so that's why I agree with what you're saying is my point.
Thank you, I love that. So kind of
but you found but you finally found a program that you felt.
I ended up finding like 3 different programs that I was really into, and then I just ultimately landed on one. And to be honest, at the time, I don't even remember what made me pick one over the other. I think I just was looking at all the classes and saying, okay, these kind of seem like they're in line with what I really want to study and what they were offering. And so I ended up at Maryland University of Integrative Health. And I loved too that they had an online program. So they have a campus, and then they also have an online program. And with what I do with traveling and everything, I just I couldn't uproot and move to a campus. So I really liked that.
And how long was that program?
So you can do it in as little as 2 years. I did 3 years just because of my crazy travel schedule.
Travy. Yeah, you should.
My Travy schedule. With my crazy travel schedule, I needed something that I could do remotely.
Yeah, and you just finished, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Seriously, it's like I really admire that, because I would love to get that sort of but I just mentally I'm like I can't do 3 years of 2 to 3 years of intense. I just mentally I'm burnt out. So
I mean, I get it.
Yeah, I can't. So I really kudos to you, big time.
Thank you. Well, it was definitely not all. I mean, there were so many times where I would ask myself, why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah.
What am I doing? And obviously, I had an end goal in sight, and I knew ultimately why. But it was just, it was a lot. It was a lot.
I mean, I really just am so curious. Let's talk about what it was like being on tour.
Yeah.
Just quickly, let's just talk about how you time managed everything you were doing. Because you were balancing Realfoodology and touring and school. What did that, how were you doing that?
Well, I barely survived.
You're I don't remember. I was blacked out most of it because I was so tired.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I was very lucky in the sense that a lot of what I was doing with Realfoodology was in line with what I was doing on the road. So that definitely helped me out. For example, part of my job in the morning is getting up and finding healthy breakfast for Tove and I. And so, I would photograph what I found for breakfast, and, I'd photograph what we got for lunch and what we were eating and stuff. And because it was such a high priority for me on the road and as part of my job, then I was able to quickly, I would run off and take a photo really fast or something, and then edit it later when I had 5 minutes or something to spare. But yeah, so it was a lot of that. And then, it was really, oh man, it was basically any time that I could have any sort of free moment, I was just on my computer doing something. Yeah. So, Thankfully, we had a stint where we were flying a ton. So I would literally just get a Wi-Fi code. Actually, this is so funny. I one time was on a flight and I was so sick of buying the Wi-Fi every time that I like reached out to the customer service and I kind of had a little like sob story. And I was like, look, I have 15 flights in the next 30 days.
Yeah.
I'm a student. I don't make that much money. And this is the only time I can study.
Yeah.
Can you help a girl out? And this person sent me like 15 codes for the Wi-Fi. I could not believe it. I was like,
oh my God.
I was like basically crying on the plane. Like, you're an angel.
That is so nice.
Yeah, it was incredible. So I was doing a lot of stuff on flights, like 2-3 hour flights. I would literally just like hone in and do anything I could for school. Then when we did have days off, I would unfortunately, and this is what really sucked, is we would be in these amazing cities and I would be cooped up in my hotel room studying. I mean, I remember just a couple months ago, we were in Buenos Aires and I was just in my hotel room all day studying. And I was just like, I could be outside, like enjoying this amazing country that I've never been to before, but I'm on my computer and I'm like, it's worth it.
Yeah, you gotta do it. Okay, that's really I'm just really impressed by you. Seriously, I can't tell you enough.
I appreciate that.
But like, I want to know also what your job for Tove entailed more. Like, so for example, you had to find healthy breakfast in the morning. Like, what else were you helping with?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I do work as a personal assistant for her as well, which is kind of it's funny. When they first brought me on, her tour manager the first day sat me down and he was like, so your job is kind of a work in progress. You do you, and I'll kind of like point you in certain directions along the way. And we're kind of just going to wing this as we go.
I mean, being a personal assistant, well, I don't know what it was like for you. For me, it's just like doing anything.
Yeah.
Like literally anything and everything. And like literally 24/7. Like,
well, exactly.
Being ready to go.
Yeah. And it was kind of, and initially when I first started out, I wasn't really her personal assistant. Like I was more so just brought on to make sure everyone stayed healthy. Food was like my priority. It was like anything that had to do with food on the road, like I took care of. And that is still the case now. But then it kind of morphed into me helping her because the busier that she's gotten, she just needs an extra hand. And what I do with the food does not take all day. Yeah. So, So as far as, I mean, I can kind of walk you through my regular day. So in the morning I'd get up and I want to preface this by saying that our days are so vastly different every single day that there really is no set thing that I do per se. There's kind of a general theme throughout the day, but it all is dependent on, one day we'll wake up in a hotel room and we'll, have a show and she'll have to be there by noon or 1. And so that will determine something differently versus if we have to get up and fly. So, but generally speaking, it's a lot of making sure that, we have a healthy breakfast somehow. And whether
we'll get to that in a second.
Yes. So whether that be, chia seed pudding or green juice. And I really lucked out in the sense with Tove that she and I have pretty much the exact same taste palette and both enjoy the same foods. So it's literally to the point now where like wherever I go, I just buy her what I buy myself.
Yeah, that's
and
so
it's
nice.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so breakfast in the morning and then, depending on what time we had to be at the venue, either I would go find us a healthy lunch. A lot of times I'll find a spot somewhere in a city and she and I will go for a walk. One of my favorite memories from this last tour that we did, she and I, we had been flying, I think, for like 24 hours before that, like something insane. Yeah. And we were both just like, oh, we just want to get outside. I mean, the sunshine, we just want to walk. And I found this amazing food place that was like a 10-minute drive or maybe it was like a 15-minute drive and like an hour walk. And we were just like, we're walking. So we walked an hour to this place, got amazing lunch. And so that's part of my thing is either I find a place and I go pick it up personally if she's too busy in an interview or whatever it is, or she and I will, make an excursion out of it and go to lunch or whatever. Yeah. And then, depending on if we have a show day, sometimes we'll have catering, but if we're in the US, I avoid catering like the plague.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And if we do have it, I'm literally like, if you don't serve me organic, we're not eating.
Yeah. I love that.
Like it is not happening.
Oh my God.
But it's different when we're in the UK. Actually in Europe in general, I usually opt for the catering because a lot of times it is amazing. And more than half the time it's organic and, you know, freshly grown, and just they have completely different standards there. But so a lot of this is me advancing this ahead of time. So perfect example, we're playing a festival in Sweden in 2 weeks, and I'm on emails right now hammering out all the details with all the food and stuff. So whether that be catering, and then we have something that's called a rider, which I feel like a lot of people are probably at least somewhat aware of, you know, hearing about band riders, but essentially it's a written up list of all the food that you want in your dressing room.
Yeah.
And I mean, it literally can be pretty much anything you want. Like I put chia seeds on there sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I have, you know, organic fruit on there, and our favorite Jackson's coconut oil, sweet potato chips. I mean, it's really like anything you want. So it's just a lot of like snacks and food that we want in the food that, or in the room that day.
I'd love to see your rider.
I'll show it to you.
Yeah, has Tove always been a healthy eater, or did they bring you on to try and like help her get healthier?
She's always been a really healthy eater. So she's Swedish, and just the way that they eat in Sweden is just so different than the way we eat here.
Yeah.
But she definitely, it was more that they didn't know how to navigate healthy eating in the US, because there's so many things now that we have to worry about.
None of us do.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so flattered by this. She told me this story, and I mean, I got tears in my eyes because I was just so flattered by it. But when they first started touring here in the US, and then they all went home, she said that like all of them went home like not even be able to like button their pants really, you know, and and this is coming from people that they eat well anyways. Like these are like when they go out, they're accustomed to like ordering salads or whatever. It's not like they were eating like Taco Bell and stuff, you know? And when they brought me on for the last show that we had was, I don't remember where it was, but her parents had flown over from Sweden and came out to the show. And she told me that her parents were just like, what happened to you guys? Were you guys like are you guys not eating?
Yeah.
Like what's going on? Everybody looks so healthy and they look so happy. Everybody's glowing.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And she told her parents, she was like, it's Courtney. Like Courtney just came in and like revamped our whole rider, made sure that we had access to healthy food all the time. And it just like made all the difference. I mean, I started crying. I was like,
no, I would too. Well, it's insane how powerful good food is. And this is what I want to get into, but really quickly before we get into that whole thing.
Yes.
Do you have any tips, like when you're looking for a healthy breakfast or lunch spot in another country, how do you find somewhere?
Yeah,
like for people who are traveling.
I have like a little system. So initially what I first do is check Yelp, but I want to say be careful with Yelp, because in my experience, there's a lot of Yelp doesn't seem to be updating as much as they used to.
Yeah, I feel like it's not.
Yeah. So what I've been doing is I initially go to Yelp. I kind of gather a list. So I'll look at the reviews, and the first thing I type in is organic. I will literally just search organic in my general vicinity. And I love just typing organic, because then everything will come up. Restaurants come up, you know, health food markets, juice bars, like anything that's organic near you will pop up. And then from there, I'll read the reviews, and I'll kind of have like a loose list of kind of what I feel like I would want. And then I take it into Google just to make sure it's actually still a restaurant.
Yeah.
Because I've had too many times where I just relied on Yelp, and then we would walk there and it would be like permanently closed or they weren't open that day or whatever it was. So always check it in Google just to make sure. And so it's kind of just like a reading the reviews and then looking at the menus. And then from there, I kind of just like garner this little list. And then what I've been doing for our band and crew is I have this list, and I always list off, you know, a couple different food restaurants to go to, a juice bar or two. And then I always have like a coffee shop on there, and I'll send an email out to our band and crew and say, hey, you know, this is all the healthy spots near us. This is how far they are, this and that. And and so that's kind of my system for finding it.
Cool. Okay, so let's get into food abroad versus in America.
Ooh, this is my favorite.
I honestly don't even know where to start. Like, this is like why I want you on here, but maybe I don't even know where to begin with this. Where's your favorite place to eat? What's your favorite country to eat in?
I would say any of the Scandinavian countries in general. So, Finland, Sweden.
What are their diets like?
I'm like, oh my gosh.
I need to know.
So, you know, they actually by default eat pretty high fat diets without even actually like really trying. Like, I feel like in the US now, it's like you have to seek out like a high fat meal, but you know, it's a lot of wild caught fish, greens, and and this isn't to say that they don't have unhealthy eating habits as well, but it's just compared to the US, I mean, it is like light years of a difference.
Yeah.
And the reason why I love the way that they eat over there so much is that they really do put such an emphasis on the healthiness of their food, and they don't spray with pesticides like we do. I mean, one of the most widely used herbicides that we use in this country is glyphosate, or better known as Roundup. And that doesn't even exist there. They don't use it. I mean, we were at a music festival recently I think it was in Denmark. And this was like, okay, so I walk into the catering and they have no idea who I am whatsoever. Yeah. Like, they don't know my love for organic food and everything. And the first thing that the woman says to me as she hands me a plate, she's like, this is all organic. We picked all of this, in a garden nearby. Yeah. And everything is made from scratch. And I was just like, oh, you're speaking my language. Yeah. And that's just how they are over there. There's just an emphasis on having organic, real food.
Are there any countries that you went to that were similar to the U.S. in the quality of their food, or is it pretty much everywhere that's broad better?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I would say South America was pretty bad too. Okay. They use a lot of sugar over there. Oh, I see. A lot of sugar. And every country kind of has their differences. I would say Australia is coming up close to us as well. And granted, I say that, but they also, on a different spectrum, are doing really well with a lot of things. But again, Australia uses a lot of sugar. And there was another thing. I can't remember. I was going to say something else about Australia, but I can't remember. But but I will say they, at the same time, are pretty conscious of eating really well. Like, you can pretty much walk to any corner of any street and find an acai bowl and find avocado toast with pasture-raised eggs, and they love halloumi over there.
Oh my God.
Like, every restaurant you go to has halloumi.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I always see that on Instagram and I'm like, that looks so good.
It's so good.
Okay, let's talk about the US food industry.
Oof.
Let's just I want you to just list out some of the problems you have with the state of the food industry in America.
Okay, well, I will tell you the first thing that comes to mind, because talking about cities abroad, and something that makes me my blood is kind of boiling just thinking about it right now.
Oh, good. I like you feisty. Let's bring it. Got the water. I'm ready.
Yeah, so they actually, because there's different regulations for different countries versus ours, major food manufacturers, they literally produce different food for us in the US than they do for other countries. So, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So, for example, let's say, I don't know, can I name brands?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. So
They're not sponsoring me.
Okay, good. I'm like, all right, I'm about to lay some heat on them.
Do it. I like calling out people.
So Kraft macaroni and cheese. I know they've started making steps. I don't even want to give them any validation, but just in case if anybody's like, oh, well, they changed their formulation. Okay, so they've started making some steps, but still, they're not great. But they sell a different macaroni and cheese box to the UK than they do to the US. In the UK, they don't allow all the artificial dyes that they use to make it that gross fluorescent orange like they do in the US.
Yeah.
You know what they use to dye it in the UK? Turmeric.
Are you serious?
Yes. And the reason why it makes me so fucking angry is that they're already making it.
Yeah. And they can't just... So why do they do that?
Because they can get away with it here. Because it's not as regulated here. So they're allowed to put that in their food, and it's cheaper. So, and
Jesus Christ,
I know. And that's what makes me so mad, is that what a lot of people don't realize is that with these larger food corporations, the health is not in their mind. Health is not their prerogative. They just stand for their bottom line. So when you go to the grocery store and, you pick up a food label and you see that it has all these fillers and preservatives, those don't serve anything else but to make sure that can stay on the shelf for months on end without going bad. There is no health purpose for that whatsoever. It is literally to line their pockets with money.
Absolutely. And can you talk about labeling for a sec? And people are like, well, it says all natural, it says organic, it says, and I'm like, that doesn't mean it's healthy,
You know, the all natural thing drives me so nuts because there is no regulation. So any company can say that they are natural and they're not. I mean, perfect example, Cheerios. I mean, they could write that they're, I don't even know, maybe they do say natural on there.
Probably.
But they're made from genetically modified ingredients. There's literally nothing natural about that. But there's no regulation for the wording, so companies can say whatever they want is natural.
Yeah, it actually really scares me. And okay, maybe also, can you talk about what is going to happen to people's bodies the more they consume these foods?
Oh God. I mean, we're starting to see the effects of it now. I mean, you know, it's really hard to track because there's also a lot of other factors involved, you know, a lot of environmental factors. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, it's all your food 100%. So it's hard to completely track it, but
it's a big part.
But it's a huge part. It's a huge part.
Yeah, every day. Yeah.
Well, and the science backs it up too. You can actually look at graphs online and see the rise in, let's say, like certain autoimmune disorders and when we started using pesticides. And there's literally a direct correlation. When you look at it on a graph, they're both slowly moving up. As we use more pesticides, we see more autoimmune disorders, and cancers too. I mean, and it's so funny because, you know, we're having this rise in all of these diseases and, you know, cancers and everything, and everybody's kind of scratching their heads going, oh, well, I wonder why. And then you look at what we're eating. I mean, I brought this up earlier, but I just feel like it's so important to mention. Glyphosate is so widely used in our country right now that, I mean, they're spraying it on wheat literally right before they're harvesting it. So there was a company, third-party testing company recently that tested a lot of just major food brands. And I don't remember all of them, but I do remember one of them was Cheerios. And they were testing so high for glyphosate on there that it was like charting just off the charts, which is terrifying. And you think about all these mothers that are feeding their young children, they're essentially eating pesticides.
Yeah. It's just like, it's hard really because people get these diseases later on, but it's like, because it wasn't this, oh, I fell, broke my leg, and that's why I broke my leg. It's, I wake up one day and I have Graves' disease. Why do I have this? Like, people don't connect it to their food, and they don't want to connect it to their food because they just don't see the connection. And that's why I feel like it's so important to talk about it now. And it's like, I try and talk to my friends and they're like, I'm fine, I feel fine. I'm like, well, you're not going to feel fine in 10 years.
Exactly.
You know, which is so scary.
Well, and that's what's so hard about it and why it is so hard to convince people, because it's not, like you said, it's not an overnight thing, or it's not like you trip and fall and you have a bruise and right away you see the effects
and you know
of it.
exactly what it was.
Yeah. And it's why we're seeing such rampant high incidences of disease now, is because of the way that we're eating. And, you know, we keep hearing all of this stuff like, oh, you know, we never saw children before with cancer. Why are we seeing that? Or, you know, we never saw, you know, 5-year-old kids with diabetes. And it's because of what we're eating. Yeah.
No. And back to the labeling thing. It's like,
and it's so confusing.
I literally just got in a fight with my, not going to say who, family member the other week, because we're arguing about how could she have a healthy breakfast. And she's telling me, I eat a healthy breakfast. I have high fiber cereal with my skim milk. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I literally don't even know what to say, because how do you know, your high fiber cereal, or, you know, the low fat things still, like, that's just filled with sugar. And
let me just say, low fat skim milk is basically sugar water.
Literally. And it is just like it too.
I know, it's so gross.
Water. But okay, what sorts of labels should people be looking for?
Yeah, I would say number one, organic. It is a felony for a company to claim to be organic when they're not. So it is, I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen that companies label things that are organic that are not, but, you know, there's only so much that we can do. And right now we just, you know, you have to trust that if a company says it's organic, then, you know, obviously you can do background research and stuff. But for the most part, I would say right now that you can trust organic, because I don't think these companies would be wanting to put themselves in that position for if they got caught.
Yeah. But also just because it's organic doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy.
Like, well, exactly.
I see so much like organic mac and cheese.
Oh, I know.
I'm like,
I know. God.
And that's how people justify buying this. Organic fruit snacks, organic, like,
I know, I'm like, it's still sugar. Yeah. It's still, you're not going to get anything else out of that but a high dose of sugar, and it's going to raise your blood sugar levels. Yeah. But so Well, my rule of thumb that I always say is if you look at the back of the ingredients and if you could technically make it at home, then I would say that it's probably safe to buy.
Yeah,
and I mean,
that.
you don't have to get into the logistics of it. Like, well, how would I make these organic Cheez-Its or whatever?
Yeah.
Cheez is not a good. I'm thinking of the Simple Mills, like farmhouse cheddar crackers, for example. Obviously, you probably physically wouldn't really know how to make those. But if you look at the back of the ingredients, you go, oh, I literally have all of those in my pantry.
Yeah.
So if I really wanted to make these at home, I could. So that's kind of my general rule of thumb. If I'm buying packaged foods, I can look back at the ingredients and go, okay, I know what all of these are. I could make this at home if I wanted to. I don't want to because I can buy this, but that's really my general rule of thumb when it comes to shopping.
Yeah. And so do you find in other countries, are there these sneaky sugars and everything too? Is that an issue as much?
Not as bad. Well, I would say it is starting to get worse because I have noticed. So do
you think that's because we are fucking everyone else up?
I do.
Yeah, same. I'm like,
because we have such an influence on other countries. But there are a lot of countries that are very smart to it and are looking at us right now going, wow, they're fucking up royally and we want to do something different. So hence why so many countries have banned GMOs, why so many countries haven't been using pesticides like we do, because they're looking at us as guinea pigs right now, because essentially we are.
I just can't understand why other countries care enough to ban these things and
why we're not.
Yeah. I can't understand.
I know. And, and that's something that I struggle with a lot, but a lot of it comes down to money.
But it's everybody has a money issue. Right? Isn't everybody always, obviously everybody wants to pay attention to the money, but
absolutely well, a lot of it too is just it's ingrained in the way that America functions in general. I mean, because I've talked about this before with Tove and her band, who are Swedish. Just the way that their country is ran, it's capitalism. They're not a capitalistic country like we are. And a lot of the issue is that money really runs everything in our country.
It's so fucked up.
I know. And politics follow the money. Science follows the money. Another thing that drives me insane.
This study showed, well, who was that study funded by, guys?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't.
That's why you have to be so careful about where you get your information now. Yeah. That's why I tell everyone, don't just believe everything point blank. I know that it sucks, but we live in a time that you really have to do your own research to get the right answer.
But what's scary is people think they're doing their own research, but
I know.
Then they're where can you get information you can trust?
Oof. I mean, that's a really good question. And I'm not even fully sure if I can answer that. I mean,
I know. I don't even know either.
Some of it is kind of just some of it's trial and error. I mean, so I told you, I started getting into health and wellness. Now it's probably been 11 years and it's been a lot of trial and error. I mean, there's been times where I've made mistakes and found certain things and been like, oh, this health trend or whatever. And then realized, okay, I was kind of being duped a little bit.
Do you have an example?
This is a really small example and maybe kind of silly, but it's just the first thing that popped in my head. Yeah. So I remember I was eating this. I loved this dark chocolate brand, and I don't want to name any names because I don't want to blast them, because I actually still really love them now because they've made changes. But when I was first really starting to get into all of this, and I was, just very hyper aware of GMOs and not wanting to have them in my food. And I remember one time looking at the package of this and looking at the ingredients and being like, oh, they sweeten this with beet juice. And it didn't say anything about non-GMO, didn't say anything about organic. And I had learned in all my studying that most of our beets in this country are GMO. So unless if you're buying organic beets, there's a very high chance that they're going to be genetically modified. And I actually went as far as emailing the company and I said, hey, I saw that you guys sweeten with this.
I fucking love you.
Man, I just
you
when I get
my kind of girl.
I love you. I just love to do my research because I want to be fully informed and I want to know what I'm putting in my body because it's very important. And I emailed them and I was like, hey, is this GMO? And thankfully they wrote me back and they were very honest and they were like, we're working on it right now. We don't use GMO or non-GMO beets right now, but it's definitely something we're working on. And I will say that a couple years later, they now are non-GMO certified and they use organic and everything. And it's awesome. But it is little things like that you kind of have to just learn to start becoming aware of things like that.
Yeah. And it's like, I feel like these things catch on like, and like the agave. Everyone was like, agave is the new thing. It's so healthy. Everybody,
so mad.
I used to pour agave on all my stuff. Like, I was like, oh, this is so healthy. You know, 17 magazine told me this is the good sweetener. And now I'm like, oh my God. You know, like.
Well, and for some listeners listening now that may still not know this, agave is one of the worst sweeteners that you could get. It's basically the equivalent of corn syrup. I would argue that it's worse for you than corn syrup because it's a higher amount of fructose than is even in corn syrup. And your body metabolizes fructose differently than it does glucose because your body's main source of energy is glucose. We don't use fructose as our main source of energy. And so what ends up happening is that it ends up getting stored as excess fat. You don't burn it off as energy. And now, I mean, that's one of the main things that's being studied right now with our obesity epidemic and with our diabetes epidemic is our excessive consumption of fructose because it's in everything. And mainly in the form of corn syrup, but now agave, I mean, it's in all the health food
I know.
treats now.
And
it
people
drives
think
me
it's
nuts.
a health food. Yeah, no, it kills me. And the fact that it like scares me. Do you ever feel like because you're so entrenched in the health and wellness thing, you like forget what 98% of America still thinks is healthy? Like I genuinely forget that people still think it's calories in versus calories out. And they genuinely still think this like low calorie yogurt from Yoplait is like
is healthy.
Ideal. Yeah. Like I forget, you know?
And you know what? It makes me so sad too, more than anything else, because I remember, I mean, being in like high school and thinking all that stuff was healthy. Same. And being miserable because nothing tasted good. It was all disgusting. I mean, when you buy, nobody likes buying those low calorie, like Splenda sweetened yogurts. I mean, okay, so maybe if you do like no judgment, but like I think they're absolutely disgusting and I never thought they were good.
Yeah.
But you kind of just are like, oh, well, I guess like for the health of it, like this is what I have to do to be healthy when like ironically enough, it's actually just total garbage.
Yeah. And okay, I want to have this discussion too in terms of macronutrient ratios. Let's talk about like, I mean,
like
what
if it fits your macros thing, or
no, I mean like how we're just so high in sugar, and like how you're talking about how like in Scandinavian countries, like they live high fat lifestyles. Like I know you're a big proponent of like a high fat diet, which I am as well, and so I want to talk a bit about that. Maybe because I feel like that contributes a lot to why, you know, you read all these things about, you know, like the French paradox, like why can they eat these foods and not be fat and I'm like, you know, it all plays into that.
Absolutely.
Like,
well, here's the thing, and this is what we're not taught in this country, which is very frustrating. It has to do with the quality of the food. Like you said a minute ago, it's not about calories in, calories out. And that has been scientifically debunked. Like, I mean, you can literally, if anyone listening who still is maybe unsure, just Google it. Google calories in, calories out myth, and you will find article upon article. I mean, there's been research done about it. And the thing is that what we're realizing is your body is going to metabolize certain foods differently than others. So just because you have this, calorie-free Diet Coke, instead of having, you know, your 200 calorie, let's say green smoothie that's full of amazing ingredients for you, your body is going to process that differently.
Yeah.
Just the same as your body would process, I don't know, like 100 calorie granola bar versus like a handful of almonds for 200 calories. Like your body is going to get way more nutrients out of it, utilize it better. It's going to fuel your cells. You're going to have more energy as a result. And it's just, and two, you're going to be more satiated, which means, you know, satisfied for longer. And so you won't end up eating more junk and crave more sugar. And that's what there's such a misconception with all of that. Lies. And in other countries, they don't focus so much on calories as we do. And I have to say, this is again what I hate so much about our food industry. It all comes back to marketing. I mean, you go to the grocery store and you're flooded with all these 100 calorie snack bags and this and that, and I mean, just everywhere you look, it's like, you know, control your portions here, control your portions here. And ironically enough, it's all this garbage that is scientifically produced to make you eat and crave more of it. But yeah, it's just
in terms of portions abroad, I'm always curious about this because some people say, oh, in other countries they have such small, like they have way smaller portions, but then I've heard other people say, no, it's the same, they just have better food quality.
No, I would say it's a mixture of both. There's definitely a a higher standard of quality for food abroad. And that is because of what we talked about earlier. They regulate their ingredients so much more. And then, the portions are different. They're not as big. And that's not to say that there aren't places that you go that do have bigger portions. I mean, I remember I went to Sweden. I was in Sweden recently, and I went to this restaurant, which is amazing, by the way. I'm not even talking crap about it. It was so good.
Yeah.
But the salad that they gave me was so massive that I ended up eating it for 2 meals.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. It was super delicious. But yeah, so I mean, obviously you'll find that. But for the most part, I would generally say they do have smaller portions there.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
And, when I talk about this, it's so interesting. It's really cool to travel with people from another country. So I told you Tove is Swedish and her whole band is. And we talk about this all the time, and they will every once in a while make little comments where, like, let's say, we go to Starbucks or something, and they will order the small size, and they'll make a joke and be like, "This is our large in Sweden."
Really? That's so interesting.
It's crazy. I mean, we do have bigger portions here.
Okay, how would you compare, like, I guess maybe a really healthy restaurant? Well, okay, let's play like Would You Rather. Would you rather eat at one of the quote healthiest restaurants in LA or New York, say, or an quote unhealthy restaurant in a Scandinavian country?
Ooh, I would go with an unhealthy place in Scandinavia.
Why is that?
Because of how they regulate their food in that country. They don't even have these chemicals in their food system at all. So another thing, unfortunately, that we're having to worry about in this country right now is, I'd mentioned earlier that there's a lot of third parties that are testing for levels of glyphosate in our food. And the problem is that we're spraying it so heavily right now that it's getting into our water system. It's getting into the soil. When wind blows, it's blowing these crops into organic farms and then tainting those organic farms with the pesticides. So even when you're eating organic here, you're not fully immune to, you're just not fully going to be able to avoid pesticides altogether. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they don't use any pesticides at all over there, but it's way more minimal, and they regulate what is actually allowed in their food system versus what we're allowed here. Yeah. I mean, and actually that's going back to what I was saying with Tove. It's another thing. They constantly tell me how blown away they are by just like stuff that we're allowed to, that we're offered here in this country,
what?
like food wise. Like, I mean, you see these commercials for these like crazy, like, I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to think of an example, like Taco Bell tacos and like that kind of crap.
Crunchwrap Supremes with the Doritos inside.
Yes, exactly.
I used to live off that shit.
They're literally like, it's like they got somebody high in a lab and they were just like, all right, let's load everything we can on here.
Or some of these smoothies, or like not smooth, I don't even know what they are. Like the Frappuccino, like some of these drinks I see with like, I don't even know. It gives me a stomach ache.
I know, me too. And Tove has told me so many times, they're like, it's crazy because our country wouldn't even allow companies to sell this kind of stuff, because half the stuff, like I told you earlier, the dyes that we use, the preservatives that we use, a lot of them are literally banned. Yeah. I mean, Kraft, for example, had to reformulate because they weren't allowed to sell their macaroni and cheese overseas because of the ingredients that we had in ours in the US.
Yeah. And this is why everybody has, I mean, we have all these health issues and all these digestive issues. But right? I mean, for me, it's like, I get so frustrated because I've only been abroad once. I went away for a week and I've had really bad digestive issues my whole life. And that was the first week and only week in my life I had no issues. Oh. And it was just crazy. And I come back and I eat like a very clean diet, and I try and get the highest quality always. Like everyone thinks I'm just like a Nazi about food, right? But in my head, I'm like, even when I'm getting the highest quality I possibly can and like going out of my way in ways that most other people are like, that's just like too much, I still know I'm like, half of this is probably like fucked up, right? Yeah. Like for example, like, I don't know, all the salmon stuff, I'm like, all the
my gosh,
the fish and the meat is just like, I feel like I don't care what it's labeled, it's like not true.
I know.
That's
why I think it's so important to find a local butcher or even like a local farmer. I mean, my mom lives in San Antonio, and she has a farmer that drives to San Antonio like once every 2 weeks or something. And she just goes and loads up on all the meat from him.
Yeah.
Because she knows it's organic, pasture raised.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of what you have to do now.
I was listening to this podcast I forget what it was, but they were saying that a ton of the salmon that was coming to the US was like from, I don't even know what country it was, and it wasn't salmon, but it was like farm raised, like some white fish that they dyed pink, and they labeled it wild caught salmon in the US and sold it everywhere.
I mean, I believe it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's starting to happen here, and it's really scary.
And so I'm over here thinking I'm getting wild caught salmon, and I'm like, it's probably not wild caught, you know?
I know.
Like,
I know it is. It's really upsetting. And that's where this goes back to. You just have to really start doing your research. There is a website, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can give it to you if you want to link
I'll
it
put
later.
it in the show notes.
But there is a website where you can go and look up, and just basically it helps you navigate the healthiest sources of fish, like what countries you should be getting it from. And it kind of helps you navigate that a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, the salmon thing is terrifying. I actually did a video on this because I could not believe that this was happening. But I would say personally, I will never buy farmed salmon again. And I usually never eat salmon out anymore because I'm scared that it's going to be farmed. But they live in such gross, dirty pools or wherever they're being fed, essentially, or being bred, that they get really sick. And so then they put them on antibiotics, and because they're so sick and they're all on antibiotics, they literally just drop antibiotics in their pellets. And because they get so sick, their skin turns gray. You can look it up. You can actually look this up, and it is disgusting. So then what they do is they feed them pink dye so that then it looks like, beautiful, healthy pink salmon. And then as far as labeling it wild caught, I mean, that's illegal, but I'm sure it's definitely happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really upsetting. So that's why I always say you want to get wild caught over farmed salmon, because I mean, it's just, you're essentially eating sick fish.
Yeah. And it's just like upsetting, because it's like, as hard as you try, it's just like,
I know.
I just feel like in this country, always just like picking your battles, what's the best you can do. But like,
I agree.
I would love to give listeners some tips for what some of the best choices they could make while they're here would be.
They're in the US.
Like, I feel like you of all people would be able to, like, what are the top things to look for? Like, which vegetables need to be organic, and like, do you need to have everything organic? And like, what are there better types of meat to buy? Stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, here's the reality of it. In a perfect world, if you can afford it, I would say buy everything organic. Yeah. But I know that is not possible for everybody. I will say that I have been so militant about it for the last 5 years. And even when I was, barely scraping by, I was still buying organic, but I was going to Trader Joe's. And, sometimes that means spending half of your Sunday going to 5 different grocery stores and finding the cheapest organic, here and there. And so there definitely is a way to do it if you really want to get scrappy with it. And I would say, Trader Joe's, and then Kroger is actually a great place. We don't have that in LA, but when I was living in Nashville, they always had really cheap organic stuff. Costco has really cheap organic. Even Target's getting into it. But that being said, if you really, really still can't do it, I personally would never, ever touch a non-organic berry. Strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, because they are not only really highly sprayed, but because they don't have any other skin that you can peel off or anything, I mean, you're eating pesticides, just straight. Yeah. Let's see, what else?
What about in terms of protein sources?
Yeah, so protein sources, this is a really hard one for me, because I also, again, I personally can't bring myself to eat conventional meat. And I want to explain why, because it's such a conviction for me that when I'm eating out and I know that the place does not serve organic meat, I will order a vegetarian meal, because one, because of the way that these animals are being treated in this country is horrible, but it is not healthy for us in any capacity whatsoever. When you're eating a conventional chicken or a conventional cow, you're eating a sick animal, and there is literally no way around that. And I know it's disgusting, and a lot of people are going to go, gross. but
no,
good.
but we need to freaking hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's disgusting. I mean, they're living crammed in these tiny little quarters. Because they live in such tight quarters, disease is rampant. They're all put on antibiotics because they, if they weren't on antibiotics, they would probably die or be so sick, that they couldn't even sell them as meat. And then on top of that, they're being injected with growth hormones because, again, it's all about the money. And they, if they inject them with growth hormones, then they don't have to feed these cows for as long. They get bigger and fatter in a shorter amount of time. So it's less time that they have to worry about keeping this animal alive, essentially. So it's cheaper for them. And then they're also being fed GMO corn, which their stomachs were not designed to eat corn, which is why there's such an emphasis on grass-fed meat right now. Yeah, and so their stomachs were designed for grass. So when they eat grass, they're healthy. They're producing a healthy meat for us. But when they're eating corn, again, they're sick. And then on top of that, GMO corn, so a lot of people don't know this, GMO corn is actually classified with the EPA as a fertilizer. It is not classified as food.
Oh my
How
God.
fucked is that?
Yeah. Oh my God.
So you're eating cows. If you're eating conventional beef, you are eating a cow that was eating an entire diet of pesticides. And the reason why they classify GMO corn as a pesticide is because the reason that makes it GMO is that it was genetically engineered with the pesticide in the corn. So it is actually a part of the genetic makeup of the corn is the pesticide. And yeah, it helps keep pests away, but you're eating chemicals.
Yeah.
You're eating a pesticide.
I'm curious, when you eat, like when you're in LA for a short period of time as you are, versus when you're in other countries, do you notice a difference? If say you're eating the exact same meal here versus there, do you notice any like differences like in your digestion or health or hormone? Like, do you notice things changing? Can you tell?
Well, I will say this. I'm not sure if I notice a huge difference in that sense, but I will say that I find when I'm over abroad, especially in Europe is really where I trust the most right now as far as food quality goes. I'm way more relaxed with my diet in Europe. I don't run around asking, oh, is this organic? Is this organic? I kind of just eat as I please. And I don't feel the effects of it as I would here, if that makes sense. So yeah. And, and I was diagnosed with a wheat allergy 7 years ago. And actually this is kind of an interesting thing that some people may not know too. And I'll get to that in a second, but, I have been kind of testing the waters as I go abroad and eating, cause I don't want to call it a myth, but there's like a thing floating around the like gluten-free community that, you can go to Europe and you can eat gluten over there and it won't affect you. And I've absolutely had that similar experience. And now I will say my wheat allergy has since manifested into more of like when I do eat it, it's more of an immune response now, which is going to sound really weird, but I'm so in tune with my body that I know immediately when something's wrong. And the last time I had some sourdough bread in London, I ended up getting really sick like a day later. I mean, like cold, congestion, everything. And it was an immune flare up for me. But that is a complete side note. But I wanted to say that the reason why that there's a lot of theories and hypotheses right now about why people who can't ingest gluten here in the US, but they can abroad. And it's because of our usage of pesticides. And there's major studies being conducted on this right now because it's actually a really big thing. And it's a big theory that we're not actually allergic to the gluten. We're allergic to the pesticides that or not even allergic. We're resistant to them.
God, we're really screwing ourselves up.
I know.
So you say you trust Europe the most. Is there a specific country that you would trust the most?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I would say all the Scandinavian countries in general. I kind of lump them all together in one. Obviously, they're all separate countries, but just in my experience in general, like Sweden, Norway. To be honest, I don't know too much about Iceland and their food environment, but I do have experience with Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, and in my experience, it's all been I'm amazing. Curious, this might seem like a weird... Okay, is their version of a high-fat diet the same as our version of a high-fat diet? Because I feel like a lot of people around here are
Okay, yeah. Can you?
No. So ours is very, get your MCT oil in and your coconut oil and avocado and nut butters and all this stuff. Actually, this is so funny. When I first started touring with Tove, I was working with this brand and their main thing is nut butters. And so they would send me all this stuff to like throw on the tour bus. And me and our tour manager were literally the only two people that were eating it because they were these little like to-go packages of like almond and peanut butter.
Yeah.
And they looked at us like we were weirdos. They're like, how are you just eating nut butter? Just like squeezing it in your mouth? Like what?
We're weird over here.
Yeah. They're like, you guys are so weird. So no, it is different. There's more as an emphasis on like wild caught fish. I'm trying to think. It's a lot more like animal products actually, to be honest. Like goat's milk, goat's cheese and stuff like that.
I also feel like, like that's what I suspected. But, and also though, I feel like a lot of people like, I feel like finally people are like learning high fat is like, don't be afraid of the fat. Right. But I also feel like a lot of people's version of high fat is still low fat. Do you feel like that? Or is that just me?
Well, like, I'll just explain a little bit.
I don't know. I'll read things like high fat smoothie, high fat meal, like eat a high fat meal. And it's like their version of high fat, it's like 1 tablespoon of olive oil, like on your salad. I'm like,
you're like,
it doesn't really feel like high fat to me. That seems still like, low to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's just the media thing. I don't know,
I mean... No, I haven't noticed that too much, but I guess I haven't really been paying attention too much in that aspect of it. But I do see what you mean for sure.
I just see like what these conventional, because I always try and pay attention to, I think, what would I be reading if I had never like 17 magazine and those kinds of sources versus like the sources that we read for like recipes and stuff. And I see this thing that they put out, like they just take these terms like the high fat thing, and I'm like, but now you're making people think that's high fat, but it's actually low fat.
But that's like still pretty low fat.
Yeah. So that's why I was just curious. I don't know. I just think it's so interesting, the whole marketing thing. And the nut butter thing is interesting. Are they like not big nut butter?
No, like not at all. I'm trying to think of what their equivalent is over there. I'm trying to think of what they eat a lot of butter too. A lot of like grass-fed butter. And see, that's another cool thing is that, at least to my knowledge, and maybe somebody can correct me on this, I don't think that there are factory farms in Scandinavian countries at all. And I think they're starting to do it a little bit in the UK, but I think it's still so minimal that it's not like it is here, where if you don't buy organic grass-fed, you are buying a factory farmed animal or, dairy from a factory farmed animal, whatever it is. Whereas over there, it's so minimal and sometimes I don't think exists over there. So you're guaranteed, like when you're just out at a restaurant, you get butter. I mean, it's just, to them, they're like, yeah, of course this is grass-fed.
Yeah.
Like, is there any other way?
Yeah, that's so nice.
No, it's amazing.
Do you do butter here or ghee?
I do. Yeah, okay. I do both. I do ghee and butter, but obviously when I buy butter, I make sure that it's grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic. Or I hate to say obviously, but that to me is important.
Yeah, because you're used to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. I also want to know, so for traveling, what are like staple things you keep with you? Like,
ooh, yeah.
Or do you have things that, what are like your go-tos if you're really in a pinch? Like what if you're in a situation where you're just like, I can't find anything healthy? Like what's the best option that you can do,
Yeah. Okay. So, well, you know what? That's a hard one to answer just because it really depends on what situation I'm in. But I will say that just in case, I always, I travel with a carry-on size suitcase that is just fully for food and supplements.
Oh my God, I love that.
My band and crew makes so much fun of me for this sometimes. No. But they secretly like love it because the second anyone's getting sick, they're like, hi.
Yeah, help me.
Yeah, like help. But it's just funny because I'm always getting stopped at like TSA security and stuff because they're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
like,
who are you?
Witch doctor with all these tonics and
I love that. Yeah.
But so with that, and I want to say too, so I don't just completely sound like a crazy person. The reason I have a carry-on like that is because I am carrying for my whole band and crew
it's
too.
your job.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm bringing stuff for everybody, but I generally have some sort of protein powder in there, chia seeds, because if anyone listens or watches my Instagram stories, I've made many a chia seed pudding in hotel rooms.
That's my favorite thing. I'm obsessed with it.
I love doing it. It's just so easy.
Yeah.
But let's see what else. And then I have a slew of supplements. So I have like a whole arsenal of, immune boosting supplements that I bring. And then I'll usually have a couple of cans of wild caught salmon from a brand that I like actually trust where they come from. And that's usually more for if I'm literally, like you said, in a pinch where I'm like, there is nothing to eat.
Yeah.
And I've before at an airport just bought, whatever kind of maybe like organic chips I could find or whatever, and just like eating it with canned tuna.
Yeah.
It sounds horrible. And that like very rarely happens, but in a pinch sometimes you have to.
No,
but
that's what I carry canned like sardines with me everywhere just in case. But
that's really smart.
Yeah.
And then I'll usually have some sort of, it depends on how much flying we're doing, but I will usually have some sort of like almond butter or something on me if I can find like a smaller portion one, because I've had too many almond butter jars get thrown away. Oh, at TSA.
Literally the worst because they're so expensive.
They're so expensive. I'm like, well, there goes $15.
The other thing that I just want to touch on really quickly before we wrap up is I think a lot of people are probably wondering how you balance being healthy while also having a life. You know what I'm saying? Like being on tour, I'm sure there's a lot of social situations and you're around a lot of people who aren't healthy.
Yeah.
And how do you find that balance?
Well, okay, I really like this question. So it's somewhat of a balance with myself of not being so strict that I don't enjoy my life. So, people ask me that a lot, like, how do you eat organic all the time on the road? The reality is I don't. I try to as much as I possibly can, because obviously I do find it very important and I know too much now to not.
Yeah, I can't go back now.
Yeah, like I can't go back. But that being said, if I find myself in a situation where, my only option is to eat stuff that is probably most likely not organic, I do it, because at the end of the day, life is too short to not also enjoy yourself. And I think that really ultimately health boils down to a combination of things. It's not just your diet, and you need to have a healthy social life and interaction with people. And you're not going to have that if you're constantly, avoiding situations like social situations or whatever it is, simply because you're scared that they're not going to have, something organic there.
Yeah.
And so it really is a balancing act. And I will say that I really did luck out in the sense of the people that I travel with, not only is it my job, but they genuinely do enjoy me finding healthier options for us. So a lot of times, for example, if we all go out to dinner one night, we have a night off, it's usually my job to find the restaurant, because they know how much I care about the quality of food, and then they trust that I'll find a good spot. So I'm in a very lucky position that oftentimes when we do eat out, when we were in, I want to say it was Chile, but I don't think it was Chile. It was somewhere in South America. We found this all 100% organic restaurant, and it was amazing. It was so good. And we had this amazing dinner there. And so it really is just kind of, you got to take it day by day, and like I said, just it's a balancing act for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and I feel like they have such incredible food in other countries.
They really do.
Like, I'm wondering, just like for fun, was there any meal that you totally like would usually never eat, but you ate there and it was like incredible? Like,
where in a specific country or just anywhere
abroad that stands out? You're just like, I wouldn't usually eat this, but this looks so fucking good, and I'm gonna do it.
Okay, I know that there is one, but I can't think off the top of my head right now. Oh no. I might have to think about that for a second.
Yeah, you could think about it.
Because I know that there was.
When I was in Spain, they had these churros that were just like stuffed with chocolate. Have you seen those?
No, but now I want them.
And I've never seen them in the US, and they're just like these huge churros stuffed with chocolate, like ganache. And I was like, why is this not in the USA?
Oh, actually, okay, so you made me think of exactly what... Okay, of what I ate. So
good. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, that was perfect. By the way, those sound amazing. When I was in South America, we were in God, again, I can't remember which city we were in, but I was getting bombarded by comments of people saying, oh my gosh, you have to eat this specific cookie. And I'm blanking on what it's called now, but I'm sure anyone that's been there or maybe is listening that lives there will probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But there are these cookies that they make over there. And they're essentially just kind of like a shortbread cookie with some sort of like icing, chocolatey kind of filling or whatever. And I was getting bombarded so much with it that I hit a point where I was like, you know what? F it. I just really want to try this just to like say that I did. And they were amazing. And in the moment it was worth it. But then I actually ended up feeling really sick afterwards.
Oh,
and I was like, because you know, it's funny. I went to this juice bar the next day and ended up finding these organic, gluten-free, stevia sweetened ones instead. They were so good that I bought like 5 of them. I was like, I'm saving more of these for later. But yeah, they're really good. So, I mean, I do that every once in a while, you know, I'm like, when am I ever going to be in South America again to ever have a chance to try this again? Exactly. So screw it.
Exactly. No, I love that. Okay. One last question and then we're going to wrap up. Okay. So quickly, what are like the top 3 things that you would say to somebody to changes they could make to improve their diet, I guess?
Ooh, okay. Oh, I feel like this is going to be kind of tough. Well, okay. So one, I would say be more conscious of things that you're eating out of packages. I play this little game with myself sometimes where I can like buy the least amount of packaged food that I can possibly get away with. Because I feel like this day and age, you can't fully get away from buying stuff in packages. And now we do live in a time where we can find healthier stuff. But I would say try to focus more on buying whole real foods because it will also force you in the kitchen and will force you to kind of become like a little creative with your food, which I think is fun and important too.
There's so many good recipes online that are healthy that are so fun to make.
Easy too. You really don't. That's the thing too. I feel like so many people are scared because they feel like they have to be this like, you know, culinary chef.
No,
I don't come from a chef background. I literally just learned by just going in the kitchen and making a lot of mistakes and a lot of weird food. But like overall was, you know, it was fun and like mostly edible.
Yeah. It's always edible.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of using real food ingredients. Always edible.
Exactly. So I love that. And you can turn it into a fun thing too. You know, you can invite friends over. That's one of my favorite things is my friends and I will get together and we'll each buy a couple different ingredients and then cook together. It's fun. Okay. So I would say that. And then, oh God, this is a hard one. I mean, I would say that it's really important to incorporate more higher quality fats in your diet too. I know this is a hot topic right now and a lot of people are talking about it, but it really did make a huge difference in my day-to-day life. It helps with energy. It really helps with hunger. I mean, I remember being that person that I couldn't go like an hour without snacking. It would just be like, oh my gosh, I just ate lunch and I'm starving.
Yeah. I have such a hard time on Instagram because I'm watching people's stories and they're just like, I'm so hungry again. And they have this hanger issue. And I'm like, if you just ate a little more fat at your meals, maybe you could last a little longer. Right? Like, I'm not going to say that to you. That's what I'm thinking, you know, like
totally.
But it's true. Yeah,
it is true. And, you know, and so good sources of fats, I would say salmon, if you can find a good high quality wild caught salmon, avocado, coconut oil. Despite all the articles that are coming out right now, I could go on forever, but coconut oil is healthy for you. And if you pay attention on my Instagram, I will talk more about that later. Avocado oil, avocados obviously are great. Nuts and seeds, nut butters. I mean, anything like that. MCT oil is great because you can use that as a salad dressing, you know, like with different, you can incorporate it in with a salad dressing. And then the third thing I would say is become more aware of your sugar intake because a lot of people don't realize that sugar is being snuck into everything right now. And you could think that you were eating really healthy and your salad dressing is loaded with sugar. And then, you know, I'm trying to think of other sneaky examples of where it lies. I mean,
it's literally in everything.
Yeah. Like stuff that you would never, I'm like, why is there sugar in my salad dressing? Oh, I know.
You know, like
that drives me nuts. I'm like, buy the unsweetened
the salad
vanilla.
dressing and the almond milk are the ones that make me really upset. I'm just
me too. Well, because there's some salad dressings, people don't realize this. If you put a tablespoon or two worth of salad dressing on your salad, some of these salad dressings have like 20 grams of sugar for 2 tablespoons. That's unreal. Your salad is no longer healthy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but like 20 grams of cane sugar, that's insane.
And they have the sugar in the nut butters too.
I know, that drives me nuts too.
It really kills me.
I know. I buy sugar-free everything, and I want to say I don't buy the stuff that's like sweetened with artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
I mean like just is unsweetened.
Yeah. You can readjust your taste buds, guys, because we've just gotten used to this. It's a fake taste. And then once you train your taste buds and you go back, if you ever try something, it's like whenever I taste anything sweet now, I'm like, ugh, I can't. I don't like it anymore.
Same. You know, and I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I am still to this day so surprised that every time I eat an apple, how sweet and good it is to me. I'm like, oh my God, like it's almost too
so
sweet
much.
For me now.
Yeah, no, it's tart, man. Yeah, no,
I know,
exactly.
I'm like, damn, this is like what an apple should taste like. And you know, and when you do cut out sugar in all of those other areas, then it makes, you know, enjoying that cookie or whatever so much better, because it does taste better, because then it's more of like
satisfies you.
Because then you're actually saving your sugar for things that sugar should be in the first place, you know.
Exactly.
So
those are good. I like those. Okay, one last thing. If you had to live in one place the rest of your life, where would you live?
Ooh. Oh, okay. Well, this is how I'm feeling in this moment in time. I would love to live in Norway.
Okay, love that. What do you love most about Norway?
I mean, the high quality of the food. I love Scandinavian people in general are just my favorite. And
You
maybe
make me want to travel like a lot.
Well,
I'm not like a traveler, but you make me want to.
I've spent a lot of time with Swedes in the last 2 years, and
they're
love
so
them.
sweet, those Swedes. I love that.
So, or you know, and I want to say that the reason that I didn't say Sweden is because of how brutal their winters are.
Oh, okay, that makes
I
sense.
could do it. And well, actually, you know, I'm not sure if Norway is much different. I've never been there in the winter, so maybe I would feel the same way about it too. But
I guess you'll find out maybe.
But it's so beautiful.
Yeah. Where's the next place you're going?
So overseas or just
both?
So I go to New York for a few days, and then I'm actually going back to Sweden for another festival.
Fun. Oh my God. Well, I'm so happy I got to have you here while you're in LA for 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah. So everything is Realfoodology across the board. So my website is realfoodology.com. My Instagram is Realfoodology. And I mean, I have a Facebook as well, Realfoodology, but those are kind of my most active.
Yeah. And I'll put the spelling in the show notes too. Yeah, and I just love, you guys have to follow her to see everything I love your chia puddings in the hotel room and just like seeing, I just love what you're doing because it shows people use the excuse I'm traveling so I can't eat healthy. No.
No, that's not an excuse.
Eat a healthy meal every single meal, and it's like you're traveling everywhere, and it's like if anybody could use that excuse, it should be somebody in your position, you know. But like if you can make it work, you know, like that's why I'm just
anyone can. And you know, the thing is, it's really not that hard. I will be transparent and say, yeah, you do have to work a little bit harder than if you were just to walk down the street and go to a fast food joint, but it is not that much harder.
Yeah. And pretty soon you're going to be putting up a guide, right?
I am.
That's going to literally blow it up. I'm so excited. Cannot wait.
It finally has a tab on my website.
Yeah.
So that's
you guys stay tuned. Keep checking the website and follow her. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. How amazing was that? I hope you guys learned a ton. I'm sure you did. And I just wanted to thank Courtney again for allowing me to ask her so many questions and for coming on the show. I know she's so busy, and I'm just really grateful that she took the time to do this. And I really hope that this was eye-opening for you. Make sure that you follow Courtney on Instagram at Realfoodology, and definitely check out her website, realfoodology.com, if you haven't already. She's great. And if you listen to this, tell her that you listened to it and tell her what you think. And I can't wait to hear what you guys think. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I know this was a long one, but it was a good one. And I hope you guys have an amazing day, an amazing week. And I will talk to you again next time. Bye.